Hello and welcome to my Ghost Templar PvP build. This is a build that I have played a lot in the past, guys. If you have never seen me play this build before, it is pretty much the mainstay of my YouTube channel. This is my favorite PvP build that I've ever played. It's the favorite build that I have for my Templar, and I am really happy to show you guys that I was able to rebuild it for this patch, and it performs a lot like it did back in 1.6. So let's jump right into it. What is Ghost? It's a high DPS, high mobility Stamina Templar build. Best races for it would be Red Guard, Orc, or a Imperial, or a Nord. Orc being ultimately your best option because this is a damage-focused build, and Orc is going to pump out the most amount of damage. So let's jump into the build, guys. Let's take a look at the stat page here. I've got 64 points in stamina, of course. We've got just about 24k HP in Cyrodiil, just about 30k max stamina, 1k, almost 1k magicka recovery. Just swap to the Greatsword bar here so we get our little bit of a bonus. So about an average of a 1k magicka recovery and an average of about a 1,500 stamina recovery. My health recovery as a stage 4 vampire is actually 671. You can see I am a stage 4 vampire here. My character doesn't look it because I'm wearing a costume. Little nifty trick to hide that vampirism. My weapon damage unbuffed is sitting at 3,064. If we buff up here, it goes up to 3,550. We got a decent amount of physical and spell resists. It's not too big a worry in this build. We don't have much critical resist at all. This is a really high-paced and fast, kitey build, so you move around a lot on it. So there's no real point in having too much defensive capabilities on it. My weapon crit's sitting at 35%. This isn't a crit-focused build, but having a bit of crit sure doesn't hurt. Let's scroll down here. I have got the Warrior Mundus on, of course. I am running Orzorga's Smoked Bear Haunch. This is the food that we're using for the build. I'll just grab it for you here, guys. It increases your max health by just about 4,000 and gives you health, stamina, and magicka recovery. So this is the best food for this build. The recovery that it gives you comes in so handy for keeping up your mist form and keeping up your stamina abilities. The health recovery stacks really well. We are a Nord, so we do get a bit of a health recovery bonus. I know I'm a stage 4 vampire, but all of this health recovery stacks together, and it gives me that big fat 671 value here still. So there you have it. If you don't want to run Orzorgas, you can also run the Tripe Trifle Pocket. This is another Orzorgas food, but it's a lot less expensive. It's going to give you the health, the maximum health, and the stamina recovery. The issue with this food is it does not give you the magicka recovery, and the magicka recovery comes in really handy because we use Mist Form a lot in this build. Alright, so now let's take a look at the gear, guys. Let's start with our helm set. We've got a 2-piece Slime Craw on. This is going to give us a little bit of health recovery and give us minor berserk, increasing our damage done by 8% at all times. This is by far your best bet if you just want to do a helm set that will just flat up increase your damage, and that's why I went with Slime Craw for this build. You hit really hard. I've been able to pull off a 10k crit rush on a player running this build, and this is not a pure glass build. It has quite a bit of sustain on it still, so the Slime Craw comes in really handy. This is going to be a better alternative than one Veldrith and one Kenna for just flat damage increase. The next sets that I have on, guys, on my bow bar, I have a 5-piece Knight's Silence. Max stam, stam recovery, weapon crit, ignore the movement speed penalty of sneak. So, this stacked with the Vampire passive Darkstalker, they actually stack together. This is also going to say ignore the movement speed penalty while in crouch. Well, they stack together, and what this allows me to do is have a faster crouched movement speed than my walking speed, as you can see here. Of course, going into crouch is going to cut off my stamina recovery. As you can see on my bar here, it goes down to 0 while I'm in crouch. But the advantage to this is while I do that, I can go into Elusive Mist, and it gives me Speedy Mist, at the cost of cutting off both my stamina and my magicka recoveries. So there you have it, guys. That is why we're running the 5-piece Knight's Silence on the bow bar. So when we swap to the Greatsword, you see I have a 5-piece Sword Singer on. Now, the Sword Singer gear, you got to make sure you get the jewelry for, because Knight's Silence obviously is a crafted set, so it's going to encompass most of your equipped gear. You do need to have one Sword Singer gear piece as well to go with your jewelry, and then, of course, the weapon. The weapon is often the hardest one to get. Swordslinger is an awesome set for this build, but there is another set that I would recommend on top of Swordslinger. I just don't have the ideal stuff for it yet. Automaton. Automaton, ultimately, you're going to see better results on this build with, and this is because Automaton will buff your physical damage abilities, whereas Swordslinger will only buff your two-handed abilities. So with Swordslinger out, your rally will be a little bit stronger, your critical rush, your execute, and your light and heavy attacks will be a little bit stronger, but with Automaton out, your Dawnbreaker will be stronger, as well as any of your Adric Spear abilities will also get a bonus from Automaton. So ultimately, you should go with Automaton on this build. I also recommend that you run a 2H. This is a burst-based build. 2H or Maul are your best bets for burst. You can't go wrong with anything else. So there you have it. The reason I'm not running Automaton right now, guys, is just quite simply I got a Battle Axe, which is not really the best drop or best in-slot weapon for this setup. Being a burst-based build, Battle Axe is going to give me a bleed, so it's not really that useful for me. For the gear, guys, we're running 5 medium, 1 light, and 1 heavy. The desired traits on your gear are going to be infused on the big pieces, of course, and then divines on all your little ones. Divines on a big piece doesn't hurt either. We are running the Warrior Mundus, so divines on your little pieces will ultimately increase your stats. You see that I've got some Hacky Joes on my gear here. That's just how I happen to have them enchanted. Ideally, you'd probably be better off just going max stamina on everything. And then, of course, our rings are enchanted with weapon damage enchants, and our necklaces as well. And our Greatsword is sharpened, of course, to be the damage-dealing Greatsword, and our bow is going to be infused. The enchant on the bow is to increase our weapon and spell damage by 417 for 5 seconds. With the infused bow, this, as long as you switch out to your bow often in combat, this buff should stay up almost all the time on you. And then with the Greatsword, the enchant's totally up to you. I recommend Disease Enchant. The heal debuff comes in quite handy for PvP, especially on a burst-based build. When that enchant procs, the heal debuff can come in real handy to kill something like a Templar who's going to heal themselves right away. All right, guys, let's take a look at the skills that we're using. Let's take a look at the bow bar first. So your bow bar is your support kind of bar here. It's your support and kite bar. The first ability we have here is Poison Injection. This is going to be a simple dot to dot your target up. A tankier target you're going to want to put a bit of a rotation into to take down. So the rotation is going to encompass putting the Poison Injection on them for that deadly damage over time, which increases exponentially in damage as their health drops lower and lower. The next ability that we use for this kind of set rotation is Power of the Light. This is a morph of your second Dawn's Wrath skill from your Templar tree. Now, the reason I went with Power of the Light is because this is a burst-based build, and Power of the Light comes in real handy for playing burst, especially in PvP. It can store a maximum amount of damage of up to almost 18k on my bow bar here, so I have to hit my target with around 60k damage in order... or with around 80k damage in order to get the full power out of my Power of the Light. Now, that being said, guys, that 60k damage burst, we're talking about outside of PvP. So in PvP, I have to hit my target with around 30k damage in order to get the biggest burst out of my Power of the Light, 30 to 40k damage. Finally, the last thing to note about Power of the Light is that it afflicts your opponent with Minor Fracture and Minor Breach, reducing their physical and spell resist by 1320 for 6 seconds. This, of course, will just accentuate your damage, allowing you to burst your target even harder if you have them marked with this ability. The next ability on the bar, guys, probably your most important defensive ability and movement ability for this build, Elusive Mist. This ability is a no-brainer. You absolutely need it for this build. This build is based around the fact that we can use this speedy mist to move around. This is going to reduce all incoming damage that you take by 75% while you're in the mist form. On top of it, you're going to gain the major movement speed buff, which will increase your movement speed. The next ability on the bar, guys, is Extended Ritual. Extended Ritual, of course, is a mainstay for any Templar build in PvP. Having a Purge is so invaluable. The ability to remove 5 harmful effects from yourself cannot be overlooked. Of course, this gives your allies an opportunity to synergize on this ability to remove all the negative effects from themselves as well. So your friends will love you for running this ability as well. And then finally, guys, we have Channeled Focus here. We've gone with Channeled Focus because not only does it give me that major ward and major resolve buff to my physical and spell resist, it also allows me to recover around 480 magicka every 2 seconds. So it's the equivalent of about 480 magicka recovery. The reason that channel focus works so well for this build is because, of course, once you throw your channel focus down, it will continue to give you that magicka recovery through your mist form, which would normally cut off your magicka recovery. And finally, guys, the last ability that I have on my bar here is Clouding Swarm. For this patch, Clouding Swarm still turns you invisible. The stealth on it is super iffy, so you kind of get knocked out of it. But in the upcoming patch, they are changing Clouding Swarm so that it is a kind of gap closer burst-based ultimate. Because this build uses Critical Rush as our primary gap closer, I wouldn't recommend running Clouding Swarm in the new update. The invisibility is fun for now, but once the housing patch hits, I'd recommend you guys switch it up to maybe something like the Ballista off of the bow bar. The Ballista is going to be an awesome option because that'll allow you to apply a lot of pressure to a single target, throw the Ballista on them, throw your Power of the Light on them, throw your Poison Injection down, and then deal some serious Greatsword burst. Alright, so let's take a look at the Greatsword bar, guys. I've got, in the first slot, Executioner. This is going to be my Execute, and that's pretty much it, man. Pretty straightforward. This is what I'm going to use to kill my target when they're low health. The next ability I got on my bar here is Critical Rush. This is your primary damage dealer and your primary gap closer. This is going to be the bulk of your DPS combo is going to come from landing this ability. Very powerful gap closer, probably this hardest hitting gap closer in the game. I've been able to hit up to a 10k crit rush against another player, and of course against NPCs. We're looking at 20k crit rushes with this ability. The next ability on my bar is Repentance. I, of course, went with this because it gives you the minor endurance, minor intellect, and the minor fortitude, increasing your health, stamina, and magicka recovery by 10%. On top of that, whenever you see a dead body around you, you can repent them to restore 3,000 health and just about 3,000 stamina. This restored amount scales directly off of your maximum stamina pool. This is a fantastic Templar sustainability. If you're getting kills on your Templar, this will keep you alive and keep you going. The next ability is Rally. This is going to be your only and primary heal for this build, guys. It's very important that you remember to keep your Rally up for this build. We're using Mist Form a lot, so Mist Form will effectively stop the heal over time that Rally gives you. But the big burst heal from Rally is why we've got it. In between your mists, you use that Rally for the burst heal. And then, of course, coming out of Mist Form, you should almost always pop Rally to make sure you have your heal over time up and at it while you're fighting somebody. The next ability on the bar is Binding Javelin, guys. This is going to give me the 10% critical damage bonus to all my abilities when I crit with them on this bar, being an Adric Spear skill. This is also your primary stun for the build. Because we have quite a bit of regen, I felt like Binding Javelin was the perfect stun for this. You get a beefy 3.5 second stun. That's quite a bit of time to leave someone lying on the ground for. It does quite a decent amount of damage, but you see that this tooltip here is going to be augmented by the fact that I am wearing Swordslinger, not Automaton, so it's going to be a little bit lower than it should be. If I was wearing Automaton, this would be hitting harder. And then finally, guys, the last ability on the bar is Flawless Dawnbreaker. This is just a great all-around AoE. It's also going to buff your weapon damage by 5%. And then being a fighter's guild skill itself, it's also going to buff your weapon damage another 3% on top of that. So 8% total bonus to your weapon damage for slotting Flawless Dawnbreaker. It's totally up to you what morph of this you want to use. I like Flawless because I like it when my crit rush hits really hard. I feel like Flawless is the best way to really accentuate that crit rush gameplay. But totally up to you guys if you want to run something else. You can always do Dawnbreaker of Smiting. You'll still maintain the 3% weapon damage bonus for it being a Fighter's Guild skill. And then, of course, this ultimate will also stun your target and deal a little bit of extra damage as well. So let's take a look at the champion points. We're going to start in our green tree here. We've got 22 in Warlord, 4 in Sprinter, 1 in Bashing Focus, and 10 in Magician. We use quite an even amount of stamina and magicka abilities on this build. Lots of Mist Form being pumped out, so it doesn't hurt to invest into Magician. Of course, Bashing and Sprinting is just part of PvP. Gotta have some points in there. And Warlord because we have primarily stamina abilities on our bar as well. In our Lover tree, we've got 50 in Mooncalf for that stamina recovery, 18 in Arcanist for that magicka recovery, because we are running the Zorga's Smoked Bear Haunch. And then we've got 5 in Healthy for that health recovery. Like I said, we have quite a bit of health recovery for a Stage 4 Vampire on this build, so there's no point in neglecting it once we've got it to this point. In the Shadow tree, I've got a 5 in the Shadow Ward to reduce the cost of blocking. Of course, blocking is important. And 70 in Tumbling, reduce the cost of roll, dodge, and break free by 14.4%. Can't go wrong here, guys, especially in a medium armor build. Lots of roll dodging, lots of break and free going to happen, so you need to put some points in here. In the blue tree, I've got 10 in the Apprentice, just to increase the effects of healing done by 5%. Nothing invest in my Magicka abilities. 10 in Bow Expert to increase the light and heavy attacks with my bow by 5%. 20 in Melee Weapon Expert to increase the light and heavy attack damage of my Greatsword by 8.1%. Greatsword being my primary weapon here, so I put more points there. And then finally, in the Ritual tree, we've got 90 in Mighty, 22 in Piercing, and 35 in Precise Strikes. Heavily invested into Mighty, of course, because we are running that Greatsword. We have quite a bit of penetration already. Sitting with this bonus to physical penetration, we're sitting at around 8k total penetration on this build if we have our target marked with Purifying Light. And then finally, we've got 35 in Precise Strikes just to increase that weapon critical damage by a bit, because we are using Crit Rush as our primary deeps move. The important passive here is Perfect Strike to increase your weapon crit rating by 12%. This is a must-have passive. This is the first one that you want to get when you start investing points anywhere in the blue trees. And in the red tree, we've got 10 in Medium Armor Focus, 10 in Spell Shield, 10 in Resistant. This is just well-rounded defense, also getting me that passive phase after roll dodging. Your physical and spell resist is increased by 660. And then in the lady, we've got 120 points total, 57 Hardy, 56 Elemental Defender, and 7 in Thick Skinned. Just a few in Thick Skinned because we have lots of purges, not too worried about damage over time abilities. Lots in Hardy and lots in Elemental Expert because, well, it's going to make you chunkier. This is quite important to put some points into here. The reason, of course, that we've got so many points in this tree is for that Unchained passive. Reduce the cost of stamina abilities by 80% for 3 seconds after breaking free. Enough said. Very, very useful passive. If you can get your hands on it, definitely invest in it. And then finally, guys, in the Lord tree, I've got 32 in Quick Recovery, just to buff up that healing power. Of course, we got to stay alive. And 5 into Expert Defender to reduce the damage you take from light and heavy attacks by 3.1%. Okay, guys, so let's jump into some PvP commentary. So Ghost is a really fun build to play anywhere in PvP. I would say out of all the Stamina Templar builds I've played, this one performs best open world solo gameplay, definitely. As you can see there, I'm really slippery. I just kind of like attacked some of the guys in front of the thing there and right upstairs, and they can't really do anything about it. As long as I'm using my mist quick enough, not getting stunned, just being quick to my abilities, I can get in and out of trouble quickly. And now you get to see that vicious, absolutely vicious burst off of this build. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. So in this clip here, guys, we're going to be doing a little bit of, well, an old school tower farm. What's going to happen is there's me and a few other EP players in this keep. I'm not in a group with them or anything, just happened to run by them out here. And we're going to do our best to just kind of hold AD out of these towers. This is a really good clip for this build because Ghost really accelerates in tower gameplay. You can see that as long as I'm fast here and I stay on the ball, it should be very difficult for people to take me down, especially since I can change directions really quickly, move around the tower quickly, and prevent myself from getting hit. And then you see I can really capitalize on running in circles, showing up behind a target, putting a lot of burst into them and trying to take them down. Here I try to go for that crit rush off of the ledge, but it's not letting me crit rush this guy, so I end up jumping down and I think I end up killing him here. Yeah, there it is. I put the whole burst combo on him. Oh baby, there's the javelin, and then all it is a heavy attack crit rush, and there you see it. Power of the Light really doing work there. We had a tankier healer Templar, and we managed to take him from 100 to 0 in that one stun there. Come up the thing here, and I quickly drop some damage into these guys. As soon as I get jumped, I go for the double roll dodge right into sneak into my mist form to pull around that corner quickly reset, throwing my buffs down, and I actually knock both of them out of the tower with the javelin. Totally didn't mean to do that. Definitely just happened by accident. And of course, we're going to go for the res. Just get blasted by a couple Infernal Helms while we're at it. So a great kind of tactic for using this build is to, whenever you're walking around a corner into any enemies, make sure you have that heavy charged on your bow. Make sure you got that heavy fully charged on your bow. That way when you run into your target, you'll be able to hit them really hard. And as you guys can see here, I'm just rolling around these guys, just rotating on them as best I can here. I get a good stun off on this Templar. I managed to put her down again. And we're left me and this DK here to just kind of fight off these guys. Their one DK, the yellow DK, just holding still in the middle there is very tanky. I decide I'm not going to focus on him. I go for the Dawnbreaker combo, and the fall damage slash the dots actually kill that guy. I continue to fight these guys on the stairs here. I noticed that I got a couple of guys on top of me now. I try to go for the execute there. He actually shuffles my first execute, so I go for it again with the roll dodge cancel, and I manage to finish him off. Now what you see is the guy behind me, he goes for his Destro ult. I just quickly missed out of there. Good waste of your Destro ult, man. Should have saved it for when you were pushing up the stairs. But that's good. That's a great thing that this build can do, is you can kite out people to use their ultimates, etc. on you, and then just quickly get away. Quite a fun way to play a Stamina Templar, where normally if someone dumps stuff like that on you, you just kind of have to take it. But anyway, now we're just kind of at the top of this tower. The other EP here have set up some siege. They want to really siege farm these guys. I end up making a bit of a misstep, and I fall down, and I have to come back around the bottom of the tower to get back inside. But coming out to the front, I see a lower health target, quick crit rush, light attack, executioner, and he drops in the middle of his Destro ult there. The other EP players seem to have jumped down to as well now, so we're just kind of left fighting these guys in a really bad spot, honestly. This is not a really good location to be fighting, and as you can see, I pay the price for fighting in the bad location, and I get nuked by a frags, a couple other guys hit me, and that's just game over. Okay, so let's move on to the next fight. This is this build in the sewers. I absolutely love playing in the sewers, guys, and this build performs incredibly well in the sewers on top of it. So as you can see here, there's a few DC players, and they're just trying to get their stones home. If you guys like to gank stones, this is pretty much the most ideal time to attack. You see, I get the first guy there. He just kind of doesn't really know I'm there. 2.3k Telvar. Oh, the poor guy. And then the first thing I'm going to do is, after I get the kill, is go right back into stealth. And the reason I can go back into sneak like this is because the only target that I had attacked had died, so it allows me to go back into sneak. I come back around the corner. I know the Nightblade's there. I'm just kind of holding the heavy, waiting for someone to pop out of stealth. Of course, he does. I go for the bow heavy attack into the poison injection, crit rush, Dawnbreaker, and slap down for another 3k stones. And then I'm just kind of walking around the corner here, and I see, oh, look at that. There's another guy. This build's awesome because of the high stealth uptime that it has, and it's just part of the gameplay to have that high stealth uptime on this build. I go for the bow heavy attack into this guy, light attack, javelin, and then I do a heavy attack, executioner, partial charge, sorry, heavy attack, executioner. I knock that guy back, and I dot him up real quick with my burst ability from Power of the Light, and you see I get a really nice clip on him there, and he goes down from the Power of the Light and my crit rush into him. And then I've got just this last guy here, level 11 actually, just kind of chasing me here. But he's got one more friend. There's the Nightblade from earlier that I managed to get the stones off of, and oh man! Binding Javelin, light attack, Dawnbreaker, and down. He's just too squishy. And then I'm just kind of left to fight this level 11 again, but he's quite tanky. He's not about to give it up. I see another sort come, so the first thing I'm going to do is back up, make some more space for myself to continue to do this fight. I get behind this little ledge here, and then charge the bow heavy, of course, and I'm going to wait for the first kind of target to step around the corner, and I'm going to hit him as hard as I can with a combo. You see there, I actually missed the heavy attack on my target, and I only end up poison injecting the level 11. The Sort comes up the stairs, and I managed to get him really good with a Javelin. Big heavy attack into Executioner, followed by a light attack Executioner to finish him off. I Javelin over the level 11, and I'm just going to dot him up real quick here. No sense in blowing the ultimate for this guy. Got to make sure that I have it just in case I'm going to need it. And that is the end of that fight. I managed to get away scot-free with all my Telvar, and I get the chest too. Let's move on to the next clip, guys. Okay, guys, let's take a look at the next clip here. This is just kind of an interesting little fight that I had with my roommate. This was a bit of a Zergier fight here. You see that there's this huge group of players here, lots of high-ranked players, and we've just got a bunch of DC pugs here. This is on my other Templar. So what I do here is I mist right into the group, and then I run right back out again, and look at how many of them chase me up this hill. Now, this little pull and pray tactic, this is a really good tactic to take down quote-unquote organized groups of players. Look at what happened because that entire group of players had to chase one guy. They get jumped by a bunch of pugs, and their entire group is out in dismay now. They lose their camp, and it just goes terribly for them from this point out. And then all I'm doing here is I'm just going to pick off squishies one at a time, do my thing, rotate. Look, they focus fire on me again, but as the mist is, it will not allow me to die, and I'm just so fast in it. They can't really get much focus on me. I go into the Clouding Swarm knowing that these guys are still nuking it hard back. But as you can see here, the battle of attrition was lost as soon as this group broke apart. And I guess I'll just fast forward this guy to this poor group's untimely demise. This was really a big tactical error on their part, and that's what this build does really well in PvP, especially against groups of players when fighting in Zergy combat. You can split apart a group of players really well with this build just by being very annoying, very hard to kill, and very fast. And finally, guys, let's take a look at the last PvP clip here. This is just going to be an absolute mess on Alessia Bridge. Now, if you guys haven't been to Alessia Bridge, well, you probably don't PvP in this game much. This is just the bridge between the Sejanus and Arius Keep. There's so much action here all the time, and a build like Ghost really excels in this sort of fighting that you do on this bridge. You see that this clip we're going to start up at the top here. We did have to kind of fight our way in, but there's a large group of AD players on this bridge, and there's quite a few EP players. You see I actually knocked that guy off the edge, put a bit of damage into him, and the fall damage finishes him off. But yeah, playing in Alessia Bridge on Ghost, there's a reason why this build does so well. It's because you have so many nooks and crannies to run into in this bridge. Not just that, but the burst damage that you can put out just kind of coming around a corner and smacking someone really good is something to be wary of. So as you can see here, now that we've kind of cleared the top out, I'm just going to do a sweep on the bottom. We find this Nightblade, me and another player. We just absolutely demolish him. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Here comes reinforcements, as always. First thing I'm going to do is bow heavy attack, crit rush, light attack, javelin. We put quite a bit of damage into this guy. He pops his Destro ult. This is bad. We've got the Frost Destro ult on top of us. I go for the quick heal there off my Greatsword bar on the double roll, and then right back into mist form. And as you can see, it quickly turned into a lot of guys jumping on top of me at the same time. So I retreat back up top to the other EP players here. All I'm going to do here is just kind of let them pile up, get stuck in all of that AoE, and I'm just going to pick off whatever lower health target I can find. But this build's not really for standing up top in the bridge. This build's more for exploring the bottom and having fun. You can see here we're in kind of like a bit of a melee brawl with the rest of the players here, just trying to take them down. I go into my mist form and I loop around to the back end of the yellow players on the other side. A great tactic when using mist form is to always run around in the wrong or opposite direction that your opponent is thinking that you're going to go. So lacing through enemy opponents, etc., and weaving in between them is an excellent tactic. You can see every time I go into my mist form, I'm changing directions, sometimes multiple changes in directions before I pick a way that I'm going to go. Really taking advantage of whatever purifies I can get thrown down here too. That's going to allow me to just put out more and more mist instead of having to purify myself. But yeah, you can see that I'm going to do my best in this fight to really give them something to fight down at the bottom. I don't want to let them pile up and come up top. Otherwise, that's how we can, well, pretty much get overrun. I get kind of trapped in a corner with this Nightblade here. He goes for the Dawnbreaker. I do too. We're both very low health here. And then the next thing that I see is another Sork that comes up in my face. He starts casting the frags. I take a peek up top here, and yes, it looks like the AD managed to push up. They go and they drop their ults, but one member in our party, in our EP group here, drops a negate, and it just kills all these guys. They don't know how to deal with the negate. Good fight, I guess. Next time, roll out of it. I jump back downstairs, and I find this Sork, I believe, here. He casts Mage Light. I love it. I love it when I'm playing this build and people start spamming Mage Light around me. It's like, I'm not actually that invisible. Like, it's mist form. Come on now. I go for a quick dash across the bridge, turn around, and put some awesome nasty burst into that guy. Drop him right away. using my mist form, of course, to just whip around here. I don't want to make myself an easy target at all for these guys to hit. So I'm making sure that they focus on the tankier EP players here as I just kind of rotate around and try to do as much damage as I can. I go right through them here and I start to attack their back line, put some awesome damage into this guy. He roll dodges my execute there. I go right back into my mist, back inside a nook and cranny here, and I'm just going to kind of wait to see if anybody follows me. But it looks like they lost track of me, so now I just kind of peek my head around the corner. Gonna look for some kills on this bridge. There you have it. Oh, big heavy attack into the Dawnbreaker, and of course a Bally Bolt from the other EP players, just to make things extra interesting. This guy here is very low on health. They both drop the Dawnbreaker on me there. I actually survive it with my mist form, and then bam, they managed to finish me off. So there you go, guys. A little bit of an overextension there just to show you how squishy the build is, but when you play it right, it can be incredibly effective. Alright guys, that is the end of the build video. I really hope you guys like this build. This is a personal favorite of mine. I've said it many times throughout the video, so I really hope you guys enjoy it. If you guys like the content, feel free to hit that like and or subscribe button. Of course, I stream on Twitch every day, starting at about 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so you guys can catch me there if you have any questions for me that you want to ask live. And as always, guys, if you have any questions about the builds or comments, feel free to put them in the description, and I'll get to them when I do. Have a fantastic evening, guys. I really hope you had a good time watching the build video, and I'll see you again next time.